Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Tamara Stewart, a singer-songwriter originally from Australia, now living in London. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually living in Nashville.
You were living in Nashville still? No
I
way.
Yes, but I've adopted London as my second. I adore London, but it sounded so nice when you said it, and I was like, I wish that was true. But no, I live in Nashville. I'm in the USA as we speak.
Okay, nice, nice. So yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
correcting me on that one.
that's
So
all
for
right.
people that are listening that don't know you, how would you describe yourself and your involvement in the music industry?
Well, for me, I'm a songwriter first. I always say that. But I'm an artist. I release records and from Australia and a little country town called Marupna, which is in central Victoria for anyone who knows the landscape of Australia. But I've always loved music and songwriting. I mean, I was one of those kids that kind of came out singing. Um, for me, and in reflection too, it's interesting when you sort of circle back and have to do interviews because I've got to sort of dig deep and remember how did this all start again. But for me, I remember being like 7 and 8 years old, and the youngest of three girls. Like I just sort of came out with this passion for songwriting. I'd sit there with the album and like be counting syllables of the lyrics and listening to the story. Like it was just in me to study, to want to get inside the song. So that's why I say I'm a songwriter first. But I've been on stage singing since I was 11, so it's always been what I knew I wanted to do. And Nashville for me was an obvious place to go because my number one passion. Um, biggest musical influence starting out was country music, and so Nashville is of course the mecca of that. So I was backwards and forwards for many years, and I moved here 8 years ago, and it's great. It's a great town. It's great to have that personal experience of living in a different country too. But my relationship with London and why I loved what you said so much is my first tour of the UK was way back in 2001. So I don't get back as often as I'd like to, but that will be more frequent now that the pandemic's kind of subsiding too. But I love it over there, and I've got a long relationship with England as well.
Makes sense. So, like, thinking back, what was the point where you decided, okay, music is now going to be a career for me? So you've always had a passion for it, and it was clearly you took to it. But at what point did you decide, like, this is definitely what I'm going to do?
It's a funny thing. I say it sounds a little bit sort of clickbaity, but it's like I feel like it chose me. Like I did want to be in grade three. Admittedly, I wanted to be a truck driver for 5 minutes, but but that passed. I've had, I love acting too. So I mean, I've dabbled in other things, but it's just been so obvious that music was. It's almost like songwriting is kind of the language that I speak. Lots and lots of really bad songs that I've written, but there's been a few gems along the way that helped to encourage me that I was at least connecting in some way. But I don't know, mate. I think I was 10 when I got my first guitar. So I feel like the deal was done by Santa Claus that year. Like somehow Santa knew what was going on and he brought me a guitar and I wrote a song, my first song I wrote when I was 10. So it's always been, I think my compass has always been pointed towards music. But man, it's not an easy industry to stay in. So I've walked away from it many times, but it's by the grace of God, I'm still writing songs for a living. It's just nuts.
Okay, so you literally started like writing songs from the get-go, which is insane. That doesn't happen very often. But how did you
They
kind of
weren't
like, I
they weren't
guess
very good, mate. They weren't very good.
that isn't what I said.
Let's
So,
just
but I guess, how did you sort of like hone that craft, right? Like, how did you learn to play the guitar? How did you start to improve your singing and stuff like that? Is it practice, listening to your favorite songs? Did you get any formal training, or was it a bit of both?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, I had a natural want to practice. Like my parents never had to sort of make me practice. They just adjusted the TV sound to the fact there was always an acoustic guitar strumming in the background. Privately in my room, I struggled to sort of do it publicly, but yeah, I just naturally found my way. It's weird to think about because to me it was normal. Like I'd go to high school all week like I got my own band when I was 14. So I was doing paid gigs from 13. And then I got, when I say my own band, I was the lead singer of a band that we put together. And it was me who was like a 14-year-old girl with a perm, and all these guys that were like 30 and 40 that worked with my dad that had played in bands for years. And it really is quite amazing that they trusted me with those 4-hour gigs. And to me, that's where I learned to, if the audience weren't drinking and dancing, you weren't doing your job properly. So I was a for real lead singer of a band, and I had a job to do. So I mean, admittedly, at the Royal Mail Hotel in Marupana, I thought it was the Grand Ole Opry. To me, it was. I was just like, I can't go to that party because I've got a gig this weekend at the Royal Mail Hotel. Yes, that's right. So I took great pride in what I did, and I was getting, I'd get paid to do it. My dad was on the sound. My mum would, talk to the manager of the pub she was sort of managing the band, and it was just sort of, I forgot the question now, I've gone down memory lane here, but it's just nice to think about, because it really is the opportunities that we found in that tiny town, that really did. That was my apprenticeship, that was my training. So I did go to singing lessons at school. Ironically, guitar lessons I had for about a year and a half, but I used to get really grumpy. This is when I was like 11 and 12. I got really, really grumpy with my guitar teacher because I was convinced I wanted to be an acoustic guitar player for a living. That was all I cared about. And he kept telling me what a lovely voice I had. And so I remember getting in the car after guitar lessons one day and saying to Dad, I don't want to go back to guitar lessons because he keeps asking me to sing, and I don't want to be a singer. I only want to be a guitar player. So I owe that guitar teacher an apology. He lost a job because I was like, but me sitting there singing Mull of Kintyre, somehow he heard that I had a voice worth listening to. So I thank him for that.
That's an amazing story. That he picked up that talent in you as well, and you were just like, no, I just want to play guitar.
Yeah. I was like, I want to be the best guitar strummer that this side of the old high A. But anyway, but all those things come together, and I'm grateful for the grace of just being a teenager that was trying to work out who she was.
So from that point onwards, I guess, maybe talk me through, like, not in depth like everything, but a little bit of the journey that you've gone on from that sort of
Yeah.
teenage person in the band to sort of maturing into a proper singer-songwriter and an adult at the same time.
Yeah, I think like what I was saying before, like there were just little inclinations that I was kind of on the right track. Like we did the band stuff. I graduated year 12, and then I went out and did solo gigs. So I was a competent enough guitar player to stand there for 4 hours with a drum machine and do gigs in pubs that's where I feel like I really learned to play guitar, because I had to support myself. So I did that for a few years. Eventually, it was about a week before my 21st birthday, and I loaded up my old car and said, I'm going to get a record deal. Like, I'm going to go and do this. And I did. Eventually knocked on doors for about 3 or 4 years and signed my first deal at 24, 23, 24, something like that. And record deal, publishing deal. And yeah, that was, I mean, there's a whole bunch of, I guess, stereotypical doors slamming in your faces. And I got way more no's than yeses, obviously, from the same sources too. I got a couple of no's from the record company before they eventually signed me. So, so that happened. And then that first album really set me on the path of, like I got to come to Nashville to write. I was toured the UK for the first time. So it kind of opened me up to the world. So I guess the short story is I plugged away at that, had some award wins and nominations and things, a lot of encouragement along the way, but it's hard. It's really, really hard to suffer through the nose, you know. Like it's like they say, if you've got a dream, you've got to ask yourself, how much are you prepared to suffer? Because it's like, man, it's tough for anyone out there that no matter what it is, we can't be defined by the nose, you know.
For sure, and especially in an industry like music where everything's so subjective anyway,
Yes.
it's not necessarily a no that you're not very good. It's a no that this person maybe doesn't like the music, or it's not quite the sort of thing that they're looking for. What was it like actually getting that record deal? What was the process of recording that first album like? I think it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, look, it was great. I just wanted to say too, just in case there's somebody out there listening, like, I was 15 or 16 in a talent quest in my little small town, and I came second out of 2 in a talent quest. And the comment on the sheet, the reason why I didn't come first is you shouldn't sing songs you've written yourself because nobody knows the words. So it's like, yeah. So it's like now I can go, oh, well, I showed them. But, there's something in those hard times that really do define our determination, because I needed the kind of determination that I chucked a hissy fit. Don't get me wrong. Like, I didn't just go, oh, I'm going to take that in my stride. No, I had a perm, mate. I was like, this is just preposterous. But the confidence, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, it's just a matter of sort of sharpening your focus. So yeah, the first album, working with the producer, I learned a lot about how the industry works. When I first got my first record contract, I was just like, oh my gosh, and dealing with music lawyers and stuff, that was a big wake up call for me, because I'm like, this is the real thing. So that was a good lesson. But just creatively, I was so lucky for this producer to kind of have discovered me, that really saw, I feel like he really got who I was. And his name was Rod McCormack. He's a bit of a legend producer in Australia. And I remember when I went in to he said, oh, well, come in and I'll hear a few of your songs. And he had lots of girl singers he was working with. And he said, do you write your own songs? And I said, oh, yeah, but I'm not precious about it. Like, I'll sing other people's songs, like just basically saying I'll do whatever I need to do to get a record deal. And when I went in and started playing, and I came out, he said, Tamara, you're a songwriter. Like, you deserve to sing song. And I'm so thankful for that, because I was in that moment before I went into that booth, I was prepared to just go, I'll be whatever you want me to be. And he's like, no, you need to do this. And I think that along the way, I've been blessed with people like that that have kept sort of pointing me back to that. So that was a blessing in that first album. And then from that record, I went on to co-produce an album with, my second record was co-produced, and then since that I've produced my own album since then. And I thank those people that those initial stages really nurtured the parts of me that wanted to be more than just a girl singer, and as a songwriter too, to be able to produce my own record, that's just a blessing.
What was it that made you want to produce your own records? Was it more about the control over the whole creative process?
A little bit of that. There was a little bit of that. I never felt like I had been disrespected by that first producer, but I was just so interested in that other side of it, and to learn more about it. And I'm generally quite an inquisitive person. Like, I like to know how things work. I'm not a technical person at all. That's why I, employ engineers and do all that stuff, because my head gets bogged down in all that stuff. I can't process that stuff. But yeah, it was maybe control thing. That does sound like something I would do, but it's more so just being able to understand how it works, and also to the talent of the musicians and stuff. There's the level of how much my producer hat is being worn, of just mostly it's about me staying out of the way, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's just more of wanting to understand, how it works. And when I write a song too, I hear the whole thing, because I write a lot on my own, and so it makes sense to me, rather than trying to explain it to someone else so that they can then explain it to someone else. It's just, in a way. But am I the best producer? For me, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the truest thing. For sure, I'm under no illusion of that.
Makes sense. I guess, like, working with
Yeah,
different people, they put their own spin on it, and sometimes it can bring like different aspects of your sound out. But you
yeah.
mentioned the songwriting process a little bit here. It'd be good to like dig into that like further.
hmm
So talk me through, like, end to end, how does it start when you write songs? Do you always start with the lyrics, or does it vary song by song?
Yeah, it really does vary. Lately, what I've found, especially with the stuff that I record's pretty raw and real, especially these last 2 albums, the one that's coming out, and The Truth, the Music and Me, which was my last record. I write a lot on my own, and um, I've had to, like, early on as a songwriter, I was like, it had to be a certain time of the night, and it had to be certain candles lit, and it all had to be perfect. And I sort of had a bit more of that approach to it like it was a scared puppy. I had to make sure everything was okay. But now I feel like I've disciplined myself enough that I can sit down and a song will show up. Whether it's a good song or whatever is honestly, that's neither here nor there. But the fact that I feel like songs are always with me. So a couple of days, and I do a lot of therapy songwriting with addiction and trauma centers where I use songwriting as healing in that modality too, which is a whole other thing that I do. So my own personal writing is really just about me showing up and having the headspace open for the song to come through. It really feels like that to me now. It feels more like a song is using me to come through rather than me being the genius or trying to pretend that it's, that it's. I feel like I've done the training to create the space for it to come and interpret it. But the songwriting to me, so often the songs I write teach me about me rather than, me try to fabricate something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I guess it depends on where you get inspiration from. Like sometimes you might just have like one sound and you can hear like a whole song coming from that one sound or one chord that you play. And it's almost like
Yeah,
all of that just channels through you and you can kind of see where it needs to go. And then it's about like
yeah,
getting out of your own way almost, like not overthinking it, not thinking, oh, I need to add too many different parts to it and things like that, and just letting it
yeah.
naturally flow.
Yeah, it is like that. And sometimes, and I know you did mention in your question too, it usually comes out all at once with me. Like I'll sit down with the guitar. Sometimes I'll sit on the keyboard 'cause I'm a terrible piano player, and I use that as a benefit in songwriting. Like the new single I've got out, Mean Girl, that was written on piano, and the reason why I sit at a piano is because I don't. It doesn't take me the same place as guitar does because I'm so limited. So it'll often come out sounding like a different sort of sounding song. So, but yeah, sometimes I'll have a phrase or a word, or I'll be like, I feel like I need to write a song about that. But when it comes through, it feels like it just comes through. Mm.
Makes sense. I want to talk a bit about like the struggles you've had in the industry now, because I think that would be really interesting, like for people watching and listening to like learn about, especially
Yeah,
musicians that are quite new to the industry. So maybe talk about some of the like biggest mistakes you made, and I guess some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as well.
yeah. Mistakes. I think for me early on, um, and I feel like it's got a lot more to do with personal journeys because I think who we are really affects how we respond to things in our careers. And so I think for me, when I think to my early, especially my first record, because it was an album I was really proud of. We had some nominations and um, chart success and number ones, all that stuff. But I put so much weight in what it wasn't in regards to what I wasn't getting back. And so I feel like if I'd want to go back and sort of give that version of me, just go, chick, it doesn't matter. Like you're playing a long game here. Like you're writing songs, just keep writing songs. I wish I could remove the importance of other people's opinions because, like I say, I was blessed with some people that really did go, hey, don't worry about it. Like your game, you're a songwriter. So don't worry if you don't win female vocalist of the year or whatever, my value, whether it's being recognized or not is still valuable, but I think that's something that is so easy to do. And I don't know, I reckon like back, that's the olden days when it was like before digital music. I mean, it's heartbreaking now to see how disposable music is now, so I mean it's a different energy. But yeah, back then I feel like less focus um on sort of the quantity of the return and just the quality. Like I feel much better now to write a song and have someone come and say, oh my gosh, that's so my story, like I saw myself in that, I feel connected to it. That to me is worth so much more than to write a poppy song that ends up on the radio. Just for me, if I could ever have both, great. But yeah, just for me, I think that's probably one of the things I would say is a mistake. And if ever I do um, have young artists come up, or I see someone and I just really see that they've got the thing, I just try to say to them, just all I can say to you, whether you can hear it now or not, is just listen to that voice inside you that's telling you what the right thing is to do, because no amount of Grammy-winning producers or anything is going to know what you've been called to do. Like, just try and trust yourself. Yeah. And my mistakes is, everything that counteracts that wisdom, I just imparted, because I've made so many of those mistakes. And that ties up the question. There you go.
What about some of the tough times that you've had in the industry then? Like, and you mentioned how the music industry's changed. It'd be good to hear your perspective on what that change has really looked like and what do you think might happen in the future?
Yeah. Well, hard times. An example is um, the week I signed my first record deal, my phone got cut off. I was at the end of my tether with, like, you know, so it's like, that's the reality. I've known people that were winning awards and couldn't pay their mortgage. So, tough times is the reality of that. I've gosh, tough times. So many. Like, after my second album with the record company, they weren't doing anything. Nothing was, it had done okay, but it wasn't really doing a whole lot. And I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. Like, I was like, this is not fun. Like, there's nothing in this that's fun. And so I asked to be released from my record deal. And they didn't argue a whole lot. So that ended, and I thought that was it for me. Music was done. And I went 18 months without writing a song, which for me is like holding my breath for 18 months. Not because I wanted to, but I was just so angry at it, because everything about my identity was tied up to it, And so when I eventually came back around to it, my reason for doing it was a little different. So those are really, really tough times. But for me, when the whole want to do it's gone, that's about as empty and sad as I can be, But yeah, and then I came back as an independent artist, and then pretty much have stayed that way. I like it that way. And there was a second part to your question. I forgot what you said. I apologize.
Yeah, maybe talk about how the industry's changed and
Oh
where you
yeah.
see it going in the future.
Yeah, I think what's cool about the way it is now is a lot of power's been put back in the artists, and um, I think our reach is so direct to fans now that that's really cool. We don't kind of have to channel everything through other people, and I personally love that. Like, I love that I don't have to. There are still gatekeepers in any industry there is, but it's like you can get directly to the fans if if you can sort of get your social media stuff together and all of that, and and the funding pages that they have. So I think that part of the industry is really good, because it does put the creative power back in artists' hands. I think I do. I'm still on the fence about how I feel about digital. I think, like I say, there is that good element of it, but it's really hard with touring, because people would wait. Like, I remember touring, and the product that we would shift, because people had to sort of come to you or go to their record store to get it, and so now that that's hard for artists, especially artists that are maybe relying financially on that return. And where it's going, I'd love to be able to say that it's going to be outlawed better. But unfortunately, the monopoly, I think, that, the digital media streaming places have on artists is, songwriters, essentially. It's pretty unjust, if you want my opinion. And guys like Garth Brooks, he's just completely, you will not find a Garth Brooks album online. Like, you have to go through his channels. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's his product. It's just really, it's really hard when it's intellectual property like songs are. Essentially, we're selling air until we put them onto something, because they're just thoughts, you know. So yeah, it's just that breaks my heart a little bit, but I'm trying to adapt to that as best I can. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, I think the advantage is you can connect with the fans directly, and that's kind of like
Exactly.
where the focus can be because someone that's a super fan, they're not gonna mind paying for like a vinyl or like all your special merch and stuff like that. You know, they're really into everything you do, so it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah,
more the fans that are sort of in between that might come to one show. They're less likely than they would have been previously to buy like your record at the show because it's not there, and they'll just listen to it on Spotify, listen to the album, come to your show, and that's it. So that's where it's more difficult. But then it's like,
yeah,
how can you really look after the super fans that you have, you know, the people that you've got that like really strong connection with?
yeah, yeah. And I think you're right, but I think it sort of also shows up in different ways too. Like, it's hard to be measured at face value because it isn't just about album sales. You know, there is a little bit of income that comes from streaming as a songwriter and all of that stuff. But I guess it's up to us as artists to be creative in the ways that we can have that exchange. You know, essentially, yeah, it's not about the money. I mean, that's a given. We all know that we're pulled to do music for different reasons, and people love music for different reasons. But it is, unfortunately, it's a business, and it's an expensive business. It's a very expensive business. Like it just is. So, um, yeah, so it's just a matter of finding that fair balance without, you know, I remember being, I just had a flashback to being after a show years ago, decades ago, and someone came up with a burnt CD to sign. Like even back then, I just remember being really confused about like this just feels wrong. Like, but at the end of the day, their intention wasn't. The fan didn't know what they were doing was like it's like, oh, this is my favorite CD. I've played it over and over, and it's just like, yeah. Price
It's
is right,
like,
eh, mate?
do you know how much time and like how much money it cost me to make that CD? I guess that's how you look at it, right? Like as an artist, because like
Yeah,
the everyday person that's listening doesn't fully understand like everything that goes behind it, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But as I say, it's like if people are streaming and they come to a show or they drop you a line, it's it all balances itself out, and hopefully they're aware of. Hopefully the fan is aware of how accessible it really is. Like it's quite amazing. Yeah, it's basically free.
Yeah, the advantage is that like everyone can your music can reach more people basically, you know, like people it's more accessible. And
Yeah,
also like new fans that might not necessarily like go and buy your music straight away, they can listen to it first and actually like get into your music before they go and buy it.
yeah,
So it's got that different kind of appeal, I guess. So
yeah,
back
yeah.
over to yourself, you know, what are you currently working on and what are your plans for the future this year?
Well, for me, I've just got this new single come out called Mean Girl, which I'm extremely excited about. It's only been out for like a matter of days. So I'm still in the honeymoon period of that, which has been lovely with people saying they relate to it and connect with it. The album's coming, which I'm excited about. That'll be out by mid-year. And I'm also doing a podcast, which I've just started, called Heal My Story. And I'm excited about where that's going to go. It's just a bunch of conversations about how healing has influenced art and art's influenced healing. So I'm looking forward to sort of opening that up a little bit more. Coming to the UK to do shows. I'm going to be there March, April. Cannot wait. And Ireland for the first time too. I'm going to do make a little appearance in Ireland, and I hope that will expand out too because I love what I've heard about music fans in Ireland, and so that'll be fun. And touring, shows essentially. Um, there's always stuff going on with me. I'm finding now I'm a bit braver with my creativity. I have a little art studio here in Nashville that I go to and paint. I love to paint, and sometimes commission painting. So I'm doing that on the side, which maybe doesn't sound relative to music, but it is. It's kind of an arm of that. And yeah, just in general, getting this album out. I mean, it's been a few years since I've had an album out, and I've held this one for a while because of the state of the world and all of that. So I'm just ready to talk about these new songs and just keep finding an excuse to come to the UK. That's what and I'll have to get home to Australia and do some shows. I haven't done a show in Australia for many, many, many years. Mm.
Wow, I bet it's nice when you go back there though, or is it not?
Oh no, look, it is. I mean, I've got all my family there. I was just there just before Christmas. And it's amazing going home, you know. It's just amazing. And I've got some wonderful Australian friends here too, and a beautiful supportive, amazing people in my life here. But there's just nothing like when the plane comes in over Sydney Harbour, and it's just a reminder of belonging. Like, it's so incredible. To go back to the homeland. So I always love going home to see family. But in regards to doing shows, yeah, I just that takes a whole other energy for me going home. So, but I am determined to make that a priority this year because yeah, I'm due. I'm due.
Makes sense. That'll be good.
Yeah.
So for young musicians starting out today, what advice would you give them?
I think sort of just back to what I was saying before, like just to honor your own path, you know, and humility, I think, is everything. Humility is everything, and that's what's great about Nashville is um, a lot of times for artists that I've come across, because for many years I would like judge talent quest, you know, like the awards and things where I would be a judge and all of that stuff. I don't do that stuff anymore. Um, but it's just, you know, it's a hard thing to say, but it's just a matter of being humble because coming, like for me, from a little country town, big fish in my mind in a small pond. And then when you get out into the world, we really are, like we were saying, not in competition with everybody else. But if you put yourself in competition with everyone else and have that mindset, you're never going to win. Like you're always going to come up short if you have any self-awareness or humility, but just, you know, like just find your lane, stay in your lane and just support, you know, try really hard to just be fueled by your own ambition and your own want to do it because it's not one or the other. The world is too small and there's too much talent in the world to live in comparison. So just honor what you need to do and you know, lift people up. I'm telling you, because what do they say? The rising tide lifts many boats. It's like yeah.
For sure. I think that's great advice. And I think we all need a bit of lifting up, especially after the last few years we've had. So completely agree with you on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're nearly out of time today. It's been really great chatting. But was there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with as we close out?
No, I mean, I'm just really grateful that I still get to talk about my songs and I love it when people reach out and find the music. And if there's people out there listening that want to get curious and they'll find me online. But just a huge thanks to you, mate, for giving us all a platform to talk about music and make sure that the people out there listening know that you know who we are and what we're trying to do. And gosh, it's just connection, isn't it? It's just a beautiful thing to sit with a complete stranger and talk about, you know, and talk about positive stuff. I mean, the world needs more of it.
Absolutely, completely agree. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.